All right. With that, I have to make one announcement that unfortunately our next speaker got stuck in Bucharest due to a flight being cancelled, so we'll jump one session further. Apologies to that. I hope we can have him in the session next time. So we'll jump right to in the session that's coming after that. And for that, I want to welcome our friend and frequent speaker, partner and collaborator for Techsylvania, Q Harrison Terry. He has like an amazing background. Again, we have gotten to hear plenty of him, so hopefully some of you have already gotten yesterday to his panel. So he's been very kind to agree to host another one. Just for a reminder for those folks who haven't been here yesterday and haven't had a chance to hear him, he's a growth marketer at Mark Cuban Companies. He's splitting his time across the US and Japan. We'll hear another session from him after the break where he'll talk about that experience. He has led marketing at Redox before. He's been featured in many publications, Huffington Post. He's been speaking at CS, South by Southwest, TEDx. He has 3 sessions at this Techsylvania, so you can get, this is number 2. Number 3 is right about coming up after the break. So please give a massive applause to Q. Thank you so much, bro, for coming over and over again.
What's up? Or actually, hold on. I need a salute from Techsylvania. Salute. I need it again, one more time. I mean, this isn't my session and we burning the time, so we're gonna do it right because we got Nigel and I'm gonna introduce him in a second, but I need the energy to be right. So everybody take a deep breath. All right, we're gonna do a salute. Let's do it. Salute. I can rock with that. Now, Nigel Richardson. Now, he's the SVP and the CIO of Europe at PepsiCo. You're going to find out what PepsiCo is, but many of us know what Pepsi is, and they also have a lot of chip products and food products, and Nigel's going to tell us about all the other offerings that they have that we don't even know exist. But Nigel is based out of Geneva, and he's in charge of all IT at PepsiCo as it relates to Europe, and also he leads the digital transformation efforts. Now, immediately prior to this role, he also was at PepsiCo, and he served as the VP of Global Delivery, and prior to that, as the VP of Global End Services. With that being said, I mean, we know Nigel is gonna be the guy to really give us some insights into what PepsiCo is doing as it relates to AI, but other also incredible digital transformation efforts. His background is incredible. This isn't the only thing, but he holds a Master of Arts degree from the engineering at the University of Cambridge, and he is also married with 4 daughters. You know, Nigel, I'm going to bring you to the stage. I would love to have a conversation with you if you're down.
Hey, thank you, Q.
Yes. I think
thank you.
Actually.
I've got to say it's lovely to be here in Romania again, especially after Romania finished top of the table,
Pepsi.
yeah?
Hold that up, man.
Here's the Pepsi.
Salute. Salute.
Oh,
There we go. Go ahead, man.
But yeah, look, I mean, I've been to Romania many times, always Bucharest actually, so it's lovely to be in Cluj, somewhere different. And like I say, it was great to see the energy in the town yesterday with Romania. And I think it's Tuesday next week, right, against Netherlands. I give Romania a good shout at that one, so looking forward to that. I'm a big football fan, as you might guess. Okay.
I mean, who's your favorite team then?
My favorite team, it's Tottenham Hotspur, so it's a London team. My dad was born there, so it kind of goes, father to son, and now to my daughters, as you mentioned. My daughters are all big football fans, so yeah, Tottenham Hotspur.
All right, so I want to start off. I mean, there's a lot that we've got to cover, and this is going to be a fun session, but what is PepsiCo? Like, for the person that's in the room that doesn't actually know.
Yeah. Look, great question. So look, I mean, to most people, PepsiCo, you think, well, it's Pepsi, and of course it's Pepsi, and I had to come with my favorite Pepsi Zero. But we've got a load of brands, so Lay's, Doritos, Cheetos, lots of your favorite snacks. Then in beverages, obviously Pepsi, but also Gatorade is one of my favorites. So if you're an athlete, Gatorade's a fantastic one. But also SodaStream is a brand that we've got, which is a business we acquired about 5 or 6 years ago. And also Quaker. So they may not be so familiar here, but for people from the US and UK and a few other places, Quaker is like a Quaker Oats breakfast.
wow.
So yeah, it's a
I didn't know that was PepsiCo.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
because
it's-
that doesn't say it on the back.
it doesn't. No, it's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
much Quaker. Yeah, very. Yeah,
I shop at Costco a lot. That's what I buy.
Yeah.
Now, the question I have before we get into tech.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a father. You've got daughters. Obviously, you want them to eat healthy.
Yeah.
What's the go-to in the household? Because you have to have PepsiCo products.
You got to. Yeah, I've got to say. So Pepsi Max, as it's called in the UK, so Pepsi Zero in most places is by far the favorite drink. So that's the key one there. And then in terms of snacks, it is just pretty much everything. So
So potato chips?
Potato chips, yeah. In the UK, it's branded Walkers, but Lay's around the world. Doritos, absolutely love it, and yeah.
And I mean, now this is going to tie into your role a bit. You were in charge formerly of global distribution, product distribution, right?
That was like a big ERP project delivery there. Yeah.
And how did you think about getting new products into markets like Europe or elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, look. So when we think about that, we try to think about the whole business really end to end. It's why we talk about when we come on to talk about how we use AI.
Right.
We think of it all the way from farmer to consumer.
Okay.
So we always start with the consumer back. So we think, what does a consumer want? What do they need? What do they like?
And
what are
their
the emerging
lifestyle.
trends? Lifestyle, exactly.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you've got lots of different cohorts, different life stages, different and it varies, particularly with snacks, across different geographies, the different tastes. So you've got to understand the consumer first, because that's the key thing.
I love that, because that's also key in marketing, right? I see a lot of companies that want to sell a product and they actually don't know their consumer, and it's shocking to me. It's like you've built this, but you don't know who you're building it for. But I want you to share some key highlights from your experience now as like the CIO and the SVP of PepsiCo in Europe.
I mean, so to me, one of the, and I'll talk maybe a little bit more about PepsiCo and then how we really, what the highlights are for me in terms of particularly where we bring digital and AI to bear in some areas. So if you think about our business, we are, and again, we talk farmer to consumer. The big part of our business is agriculture. It's actually, we've got, there's about 25 different crops that our farmers grow, 7 million acres. So when we think about our value chain, it is absolutely huge. And I mean, this might not be something that you would know, but the food system overall, globally, contributes something like 30% of greenhouse gas emissions globally. So the whole food system, including land use change, it's a massive, massive impact on the environment. It's very fragile. So one of the things that at PepsiCo is really important to us is, okay, how do we make sure we build the business sustainably? We talk about it as PepsiCo Positive, but 3 big planks within that. The first is positive agriculture, and I'll sort of dig into that a bit. The next is positive value chain, which is more about how we run the whole distribution throughout our supply chain. And then there is positive choices about how do you get the great products that people love that taste great, but also gives them a choice that's makes it good for the people and the planet. But yeah, so I'll give you one of my favorite examples, which sort of links with the business and links with artificial intelligence. So agriculture, like I say, it's a huge part of our business. 25 different crops our farmers grow, 7 million acres, as I mentioned. And it's loads of different farmers. They tend to be smaller, some obviously are bigger, but they don't typically have access to great technology. And if you think about it, what goes to making a great crop? Loads of different things. Obviously the soil, the seeds you plant, obviously the weather, how you water it, the fertilizer. And it's not at all obvious, how do you optimize that? And of course, when you think about it, it's a classic kind of machine learning type problem, pattern recognition, if you can collect the data. So potatoes is one of our obviously key crops with, for Lay's. So we collect millions of bits of data about, what seeds we use, how deep are they planted, what fertilizers used, etc., what the yields are, and then we can use that analytics to then give insights directly to the farmers to help them work out, what should they do differently? Are they watering too much more than they need to? Could they use, less pesticide? Is a different seed variety maybe better for their soil type? And that makes a massive impact to the farmers because it can increase their yields, their quality, reduce the amount of pesticides they use, reduce the water usage. So it's one of those examples of AI, just been a complete win-win for everyone. I mean, it's something that we couldn't do before, and with machine learning, We give those real great insights right at the point of action to the farmers all around the world. So yeah, it's one of my favorite examples actually of where we used AI to have a real impact.
So I love that. I love how you're actually getting into the nitty gritty, the case studies of AI and the impact it has on organizations such as PepsiCo. I see it at the farming and agricultural level.
Yeah.
But the question that I have is like, how has it actually impacted your manufacturing and just does it drive efficiency in the manufacturing process, or like where is AI used there? Because it sounds like if it starts with the farming layer, it has to be found subsequently throughout the production layer.
Exactly, and I'll give maybe a couple of examples there, and then maybe I'll talk just about the kind of framework that we think about. How do we then think about how do we scale all this and think about the framework holistically? So I'll give another example. So the farming example was one where we worked with some universities, developed some AI ourselves that made sense for that particular use case. Actually, we want to share that. But the example I'll give on water usage in plants is one where in our manufacturing sites, our sites, some of them are in water-stressed areas. So of our big commitments, one is to reduce greenhouse gases, another is to reduce water usage, particularly in high water stress areas, and then also packaging plastics. But on the water usage, this is a problem that loads of businesses have. You've got like leaks, you've got valves that maybe, so lots of things that happen during the day, which it's very difficult for the operators in the plant to see all those proactively. So what we've done, and we've done this one in conjunction with using an application called Wint, which is it's a company that does this for loads of businesses. You instrument the plants, so you understand all the pumps, the flows, etc. Over a period of time, and we send that up to their, it's a SaaS solution. We send that up to the cloud, their SaaS system in the cloud. That then creates the pattern of understanding of that particular plant, and then as soon as anything looks unusual, obviously has certain thresholds, and it's constantly learning based on our productions going up and down, it will then send alert directly to the operator to say, hey, look, go and have a look at that pipe, that bit of the plant. So proactively, they can fix things before they become a big problem. Whereas, and like I said, that's a good example where we went out and looked at actually some startups. So we have a venturing group that look at startups, and there was this, they're quite a sizable company now actually, but at the time quite a small business that we worked with to develop that for initially a plant in Belgium actually, and now it's rolled out to a number of sites around the world.
So we've covered AI as it relates to agriculture.
Yeah.
We've talked a bit about the manufacturing process and just what that looks like. Yeah. But now, how does AI show up in the actual product, like the consumer product? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's probably two aspects. One is in terms of how we do research, so and how we try to understand our consumers better, to understand different cohorts and what kind of products they like. And again, machine learning algorithms help us to understand that. Mm-hmm. And then if you link that back into, okay, once you've decided what products we've developed, how do you get that to the store in the best way? And again, you find that even in a city, based on different demographics in different parts of the city, you'll want different assortments of products in different places. And because if you give everyone the same, you end up getting too much stock, you get waste. So instead of that, again, we call it store DNA and our consumer DNA to understand, to be much more precise about, working out which products should go where they even go on shelf. And super example of how it, particularly with our retailers, retail partners, that can help them as well grow their business.
So I imagine you're taking in a lot of data. I mean, you've got customer touch points, mm-hmm. partners, you've got obviously the manufacturing information that you're tracking. With that data, AI has really enabled us all, like everybody, that you can be a business of one, a company of one, or a company of 300,000, and AI has literally an impact in your org. Yeah. It's just about figuring it out. Yeah. In the prior session, Fortune was talking about how they've had these focus use cases, and that is really what the future of their AI efforts are going to look like. I'm curious where you think the future of AI and just the entire, like, what trends do you see emerging based on what we know to be true, whether it be GANs, general adversarial networks, or LLMs, or the next bit, machine learning? Like, what's the trends that you're deriving from this? Because you've got all the data, you're seeing it, you're like, I honestly, unstructured, structured, this, that, like, you have most people will never be in an organization where they can process billions, if not trillions of literal nodes. So I'm curious, like, what do you see where you're like, Q, this needs to be solved?
Yeah, I mean, so, for us, one of the big things is how we connect everything end to end. I mean, and I'll talk maybe a bit about the framework we use to think about how we scale digital and AI. But, there are definitely individual use cases which are incredibly important to get right, but also the end-to-end thinking. Again, thinking where are the connections across the value chain. So, again, a quick example could be in the way we plan, because that has an impact. That depends on, it could be the weather, could be our new products, could be promotions, what competitors are doing. Huge.
All that is taken into account?
Absolutely. So we've now developed a very sophisticated machine learning algorithm that develops a much better forecast for that. But that goes across sales, marketing, finance, the whole business.
And how do you ingest that data? Like, how are you collecting it from out the org? Like, are you just taking it as it comes, and how you have like a data team that's structuring it later, or
Actually, so it's a great question, and it's probably one of the biggest challenges for probably all businesses is the data. I mean, if I step back a little bit, if you think about, sort of AI, machine learning, I mean, you've got the sort of three elements, if you like, of, the compute, you've got the algorithms, and you've got the data. Well, the compute, NVIDIA and TSMC seem to be doing a pretty good job of continuing to give us more compute. The algorithms, we've got so many smart people in the world, working on algorithms. I mean, it's incredible to think with LLMs that it's only 2017 Google wrote the paper on transformer architecture that kind of spurned it all. So, for sure, algorithms are going to continue. But data, the scale and cleanliness of data is a huge one for us. So.
Well, you have an interesting tenure in the sense that you actually led the digital transformation for the organization at which you're going to be implementing the AI in.
Yeah.
And the key question here is, do you feel pretty good about the efforts that you just did in the last decade? And are you well set up for that, or are you having to start over? Like, that's the real question.
Yeah. Look, I mean, there's no doubt we have definitely done a lot of testing and learning, and we've definitely failed in some areas, and we've definitely, what we try to do is, learn quickly from the failures and bring that back and, into our ecosystem. But I mean, overall, I would say probably it was 5 years ago we really started to think, seriously about, digital and AI. Of course, we've had IT systems for years, and I've spent a lot of my career, building infrastructure, SAP, and so on. I would say the first couple of years, we were doing lots of, little bits, a bit piecemeal. The last several years, we've got a much more, I think, solid framework, which I think has really helped, which I can...
So, I mean, you go from R&D, because 5 years ago, we're looking at machine learning and big data, and I mean, it wasn't incomparable to where we are today.
Yeah.
And we think about that, and we think about the foundational models that exist today, whether it be a Gemini, Meta's Llama, or GPT, with OpenAI's, whatever, right? The question I have for you is, like, there's a new foundational model over the last couple of years being announced or updated literally every week.
Yeah.
How do you implement and deploy against that? Because, you kind of need some consistency to take these bets, especially at a company of your tenure.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great, I mean, I think somebody was asking me yesterday, what do you predict in 10 years? I think in 10 years, it's like, I have no idea. I mean, maybe 10 months. No, but, in 2-3 years, you can reasonably plan ahead. But I mean, the way I see it, for our 300,000 associates that we've got globally, I see our mission is to enable them with the best possible data analytics so that they can take action at the front line. So that's whether they're in front of our customers, selling the products, whether it's they're working on consumer marketing, brands, whether they're working in the factories. So, I just really believe that all roles are going to be, AI enabled. It's not going to be, I mean, it's a massive transformation.
So whatever's going to give you an edge or give the people in your company the edge, you're going to try to implement.
Exactly, and that's where, like I said, I think our early attempts several years ago, we've learned a lot, a little bit piecemeal in places, but the way we sort of think of it is, number one, be super clear on the business problem to solve.
Right.
You can spend a lot of time, put some great engineers against the wrong problem, and you probably get some benefits, but not much. But that's sort of the number one is really working with across the business. Say what are the big problems that you've got in the business opportunities to solve, and that's like number one.
Yeah, and I mean a bridge off of that, right? We have a ton of engineers in the room here right now. and they're all very talented.
Yeah.
But if I'm listening and I'm on the other side, what I'm hearing, what needs to be solved is actually not the cool, flashy stuff I'm seeing on X. It's actually how can I do an agricultural concept or layout that helps me get an advantage with AI, or how do I track the water efficiencies within my plant with AI?
Yeah.
And is that the type of pitches you're looking to see?
There's loads of, as you say, really practical things that are real problems to solve that, historically we haven't been able to. But now with AI, we can have a much better job at actually solving those problems. And if we do that everywhere throughout the supply chain, our whole value chain, we'll make a massive impact. There'll be a few things where so some things you're going to make 10, 15% improvements. Others you'll make step changes. I was talking to our the guy that leads our digital marketing in Europe just recently, and he was saying, there's one area where we're using some AI that's cut particular tasks from 2 weeks to 2 hours.
Wow.
So it's just absolutely transformational if you can find some of those areas. And where we're starting to use Gen AI, this is an area we're more piloting, I would say, is in creating content and the amount of content you can make. You can imagine a world where you can create personalized content at scale, which is, this whole concept of personalization at scale is a big one for us as well.
So I got an idea for you. On the back of every bag, could I get like a personalized haiku?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that could be cool, right? Leave me out of the R&D department.
You should be. Do you want to? I'll tell you what. You want a job? Will?
We can talk offline. But what I'm thinking, when it comes to just what you do, coming back to the topic, let's say I mean, what do you find interesting? You're in Europe, but you're in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Are you working with teams in Eastern Europe?
I am. So we've got in Europe, we've got a fantastic team. We've got teams actually in, Barcelona's our biggest hub actually, and it's a fantastic place for talent. We've also got teams in Warsaw's another big place for us. Istanbul. Actually, we've got people in Bucharest as well.
Okay, Romania in a house.
So Bucharest,
Romania in a house.
We've got some great teams in Bucharest. So because
should have started there, man.
I should have started.
Hyped you up,
but we really believe that of course there are some roles where it makes sense to put people together and you've got that scale. But it's really important for us. We're such a big business. Having that knowledge of what's actually going on locally,
right,
is so important. If I was talking to I'm not sure if he's in the audience, but he heads up finance and IT for Profi, one of the big retailers here.
Okay.
So we made that connection. So one of his technical guys is going to talk to our IT lead in Bucharest, and we made that connection. We made that connection here. So it's important for us to understand what's actually happening locally, and that's why we do have teams in all the markets. But just going back for a minute to that model, I mean, business problem to solve first thing. The second one is talent, getting the right talent.
Okay.
And we spend a lot of time, hiring data scientists, data engineers, UX, UI designers, which are great, but actually the key is how do you get them to work together and to be integrated with the business, and that has been a real, I think, success story. It's one of the reasons that we put that team, particularly in Barcelona, in the site where our business is based in that part of the world. So you really, again, they're grounded in what problems we want to solve.
Well, I mean, for a product such as yours, which is something people ingest, I think that the relationship is different, and having people on the ground that actually can make certain calls or shots, even if it's not overhauling production. That insight is instrumental in actually getting the sales.
Yeah, I mean, and this is another, a lovely example that we've got, and it's, I mentioned we've got a great team in Istanbul as well. So we've developed a couple of different products. One's for consumers, so about 10 million consumers, probably more than that now, have downloaded the app. It's called Cassandra. If we've got any people from Turkey in the audience, they may well have downloaded it. So it gives people, direct promotional information on their phone. So we can have a much more one-to-one relationship with people, and then.
But why does PepsiCo need to put an app on my phone?
We don't necessarily, but in that case, if it gives you something that you value, then
I get some loyalty points. But I mean, like, I'm playing coy with you here because, like, I mean, we're in an era where we're in Eastern Europe. I mean, GDPR is a big deal, right? Collecting data and data privacy. I mean, we all now have to accept I consent on every website we visit. Yeah. Where do you draw the line, and where do you say no? We actually need this first-party data. And I think that's a question. Does that start with the team, or is that something you envision and then you drive that vision throughout the org?
Yeah, look, it's something that we are incredibly strict on in making sure that, both whether it's GDPR markets or whether it's other markets, that we only collect personal data for something that's super clear, where people know that they're collecting, we're collecting their data, and it's only used for something that they've agreed to us to use it for. And in the vast majority, and we'll only use that if someone, like I say, is if they particularly want to be on a mailing list. Like I sign up for Gatorade, so I get the Gatorade emails and stuff like that, and because I love Gatorade. But the majority of things, you do it as audiences, and it's anonymized data, and we can get,
right. Well, I mean, some of your lists are going to just be massive, mailers saying, "Hey, this new product's in season, in stock," or you're supporting, some of the partners that you have throughout the markets. Yeah. So I get that, but like, okay, what's the future of that? Like, if PepsiCo has space on people's phones, what are you thinking you want to do with that? Because I think there's a lot that could happen, but oftentimes the realm of possibility and execution aren't necessarily the same.
And look, I don't think certainly we haven't cracked it, but I think if you can make things that are relevant to people, that are, actually gives them some value,
right,
builds that engagement with the brand that they enjoy. And a couple of things we tend to work it around, like sports obviously is a big thing with us, and then music with some of our brands is the other thing. So you try to get it to things that people really connect to. And again, we make products that are kind of fun. And I can't remember if I mentioned at the beginning, but an interesting stat: there's a billion times a day in the world someone drinks a Pepsi or one of our products, either snacks or. So we've got like a billion times a day we can make someone smile, it was kind of our mission about how do we make people smile.
And do you prefer the brand to take a back seat there? Or do you want this is a question, I guess, more so you probably know from just being at the company, but like a billion people consume the products each day. Do you want them to think of the brand, so like Pepsi, or do you want them to think about Lay's, or like do you want them to think about PepsiCo as the company?
I think it's about the brand. I don't think people really. Obviously we're interested in the fact that we make this big portfolio, but I think if someone's Gatorade, they're interested in Gatorade, not whether we make other products. Now there are some that are complementary, of course, and
of course.
But in general, I think it's the relationship with
Gatorade
with the brand
stands in its own.
Exactly.
So you don't get like Doritos and Gatorade.
And it's a bit of there's a nice one there that we do with athletes, which is we can actually create personalized formulation for based on we put patches on, you find their sweat and so on. And it's obviously for elite athletes, it's incredibly important. I do think this trend of personalized nutrition is going to be something, if you think about it in the longer term, is going to be something that becomes more prevalent, especially with things like those kind of sportsmen and women.
Now, I love that idea, right? So we think about the future as it relates to personalization. One data point that we didn't always have, but we now have had for at least about a decade or so, is these watches. Are you wearing a smartwatch?
I am, yeah. I'm a Garmin.
You got the Garmin. That's
Apple,
actually that's a great platform.
Yeah.
The battery life is great.
It's exactly. Yeah.
I mean, you still get most of the same data.
Yeah.
So the thing that is interesting here is we have this data. Is there a way where we could personalize the products based off of the data we're collecting from our connected devices?
I mean, it's certainly not something we do at the moment, but you could envisage the same way that we do for Gatorade for elite sports people, that potentially you can imagine that kind of thing in the future. And it's probably not something that is just going to be one brand. It's going to be, I think the individual needs to own that data, and they need to decide how it's used. And this whole, as we think about AI in the future, we're absolutely so committed to making sure we use it responsibly. So making sure fairness and inclusivity is really at the core, and you've got to make sure you do a lot of testing to make sure that's the case.
What's the distribution channel in that case? Because I think that the possibility is there, and the brand loyalty is certainly there, right?
Yeah.
If you introduced it and rolled it out properly, I think people would be there for it. The question I have is now think about we went from people go to the store, buy products, to now we go on Bolt and we order products.
Yeah.
How you show up there? Obviously, I mean, there's bundling on Bolt for PepsiCo products. But the question I'm curious now is do you own that channel, or do you think about creating an own space within those channels so that you could drive a personalized product, or is it do I just sign up directly to PepsiCo and how are you going to enable that transformation today with the technologies you have.
Yeah. You mean in terms of personalization?
Yeah.
I mean, so I think, I mean, it's probably quite, when you're on a scale and you make physical products,
Right.
personalizing is a bit more difficult than, if you're making like something that's purely electronic. On the other hand, I do think there are specific areas, like Gatorade is probably an example, where you can envisage that happening. But, I mean, in terms of how do we go to market, the vast majority is through all our retail partners. So, and that can be all the way from the big, the Carrefours, the Walmarts of the world, traditional trade stores, away from home channels like, cafes and so on. And then we do have some direct-to-consumer e-com, certainly in the States, but it tends to be relatively, it's not a big part of our business. The majority of our business is through our retail partners. Yeah.
I mean, do you think e-com is going to make that shift for CPG, or is it still going to be some time?
I mean, so CPG, I mean, in terms of e-com, is obviously it's a big and growing channel,
right.
But it tends to be, through the big retailers, because typically, especially for grocery shopping, you want a complete basket of grocery. You probably don't want to have lots of different people delivering. Now, there's some examples where you might, I'm just thinking that we get our pet food delivered, for example, at home from us, because it's heavy, so there's some things that may happen, but this whole area is a super interesting area, and we're always looking at, consumer trends, the retail trends, how we can help shape them, and I think the thing with AI and machine learning AI is that it allows you to be much more precise. So it's one of the key enablers that if you think about all the way through the value chain.
It seems like you're really bullish on AI. Like, what?
I am, yeah.
Give me some points where AI does make you stay up a little bit late at night, and you're like, damn, I wish we would have figured this out another way.
Yeah, I mean, I think you always worry about if you're doing something that is going to be biased. For example, we wouldn't use it for let's say recruitment and so on. I think there's things there where it's you've got to be super careful about that, because bias, could be a problem. So we're super careful on that, and huge amounts of testing. Like I said, there's certain areas we wouldn't use AI. But to be honest, in our business, there are so many areas where we can use AI and we can use it very safely. And I think there's a if you like, there's a rich seam for us to tap into still of use cases.
And so, do you work primarily with do you work with contractors at all on the IT side?
Well, so I mean, our model really is that, like I said, I mean, in that talent pillar of the work, so we make sure that we've got some deep expertise in certain areas, and as I say, we've built the team I mentioned around, with data scientists, data engineers, and so on. But there are some other areas obviously cloud, we're not going to build our own cloud, so we use, Microsoft, Amazon for our infrastructure in the cloud. And then in terms of delivering big projects, our approach is that we'll always want to have enough internal expertise so that, as I call it, we know what we're doing, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean,
but we absolutely use third parties, sometimes individual contractors, other times, there's some of the big systems integrators. I'm sure some of them here who do a great job for us as well. So it's about getting that complete ecosystem of internal, external partners that in the end can deliver both our ongoing, day-to-day service, but also all these new projects.
So to create some variability in like the pitches you see or the people that are getting your attention, what if people thought through some of the problems you've mentioned here in this talk and elsewhere, is that what you're looking for? Like if someone from the audience said, hey, I have this idea for manufacturing, this is how AI connects to it, we need X budget, but we think we can drive a impact case study. Is that something that you have?
Absolutely.
So that's what you're looking for?
It's always, because one of the things, I think it's very easy to be a little bit insular, and you kind of can be in a bit of an echo chamber if you're in a particular company or in a particular industry even. So it's one of the reasons I encourage my team to go to conferences like this, to just keep continuously learning. And this whole concept of, I think some of the speakers have talked about, multidisciplinary is absolutely huge. There's so much we can learn from different industries. I mean, I started my career in the car industry, and I've obviously been in CPG for the last many years, but there are so many different things you can learn from different businesses, and you should always look at businesses that have been disrupted, because likely is you're going to be disrupted at some point.
For sure. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about Techsylvania, right? Is there's a lot of young professionals, there's a lot of seasoned professionals, and you get a chance to have that dialogue,
Yeah.
and in a pretty safe space, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
not too many people. A lot of people here are really well equipped. They
Yeah.
know what they're talking about, and the people that are learning, they're not afraid to say, "Hey, I'm still picking this up."
Yeah.
So it's good to know that. Now we're on this subject. I think, you've had a varied career. You've been in Moscow for a
Yeah.
little bit. You're now in Sweden. Where else have you been throughout the world?
So yeah, I'm UK originally. Although I was telling you yesterday, my mum was born in Bogota,
Yep.
and I've travelled a lot. But I mean, I lived in obviously Switzerland at the moment, in Geneva, Moscow for 10 plus years ago, which is an amazing place, amazing experience. And whilst I never lived in the US, I spent about a couple of years doing a job in the US, so kind of almost living there. So it's one of the real joys in my job, to be honest, is to be able to just travel and meet this fantastic people from all over the world. And like, I take this example of the team in Barcelona. One of the things we like Barcelona again is that we can attract people. I'll get the figure wrong, so I won't quote it, but we've got so many different nationalities there in the team there. And it becomes this really great melting pot where you get innovation, because you get ideas coming in from different countries, different industries. We're always looking for people who can, first of all, they really want to make an impact. People who can think of problems in maybe a little bit of a different way that we haven't seen. And then have the tenacity to really drive it through, that sort of grit, which I think is one of the things that differentiates, lots of people have got great talent and so on and great ideas, but the kind of grit to just keep on going, keep learning, but keep going until you actually you make it work. And so that's kind of things we're looking for, both from our teams and people that we hire, but also from our partners. That combination of innovation and the grit to really be able to actually execute and bring something to reality, so that you can actually be proud of what you've done.
That's fair. That's fair. We're coming up on time, so I'm gonna do a few rapid questions here. When it comes to what you're doing, both as a father and as a professional, how do you balance the responsibilities? Because I know we have some fathers in the crowd and parents. I'm just curious, like, how do you do that? Because you've got a big role. Yeah,
well, and it's a great. I mean, and I've got these 4 fantastic daughters actually. Tomorrow, the reason I've got to get, on Friday, one of my daughters is graduating, so I need to get back for that.
Congrats.
So thank you.
Yes.
But it's not something that there's no easy answer. But the one thing that I have found, and we've done this in quite a bit of the team now in PepsiCo, is a particular methodology. It's called FASE. But the first thing you start with is energy, because if you think about it, the one commodity, it's the most precious thing you've got is time, right? And if you can manage your energy, and it's about getting the right sleep, getting the right nutrition, getting the right exercise, music, whatever it is, because if you don't do that, you can work for 20 hours, but you're not very effective. So get the right, and you have to do that, and make the time for the social connection. So I do consciously carve out, make sure that I'm not working, 24/7, because you could always do that. So it's about managing your energy, being super focused on what the real big priorities are. What you personally can impact and make a difference to, what your team are doing, empowering them. Because in the end, you like I said, you've only got one life, and you've got to make an impact and enjoy it, and making sure you've got time for family and friends is super important. And in the long run, it means it's sustainable. So I'm all about sustainability, sustainable business, sustainable as an individual as well.
And you were at PepsiCo during one of the more prolific CEOs of our time.
Oh yeah,
Indra. And I'm curious, what was the biggest takeaway or lesson you learned from her?
Yeah, look, I mean, we've been really lucky in PepsiCo. In my time, we've got obviously got Ramon Laguarta now, who's an absolutely fantastic CEO. And I was lucky enough to work quite closely with Ramon when I was in my East Europe role, actually. Indra was an absolutely inspirational CEO as well. And I think I mentioned to you yesterday, soon after I joined the company, I was lucky enough to be at one of these big conferences. I just happened to be sat next to her on the table. I mean, it's like, I thought, wow, Indra Nooyi. And, I think the thing with Indra was, she had such an incredible vision, which I think, and then she had that drive and tenacity, the grit to really see it through as well. So, when we talk about, our PepsiCo positive, and, positive agriculture, positive, value chain, positive choices, some of the thinking for that, came from, the whole performance with purpose. The point that, of course, we're a big company and we have to make, financial returns to run the business and continue to invest. But if you just do that in isolation, it's not enough and it's not sustainable. And this whole concept of purpose alongside performance is absolutely key. And I think Indra was inspirational in bringing that in. Yeah, she's a fantastic person.
Incredible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yes.